Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Monday, April 26th, Pope Francis sends medical equipment to a Catholic hospital in Armenia. Iraqi Cardinal Sarko prays for victims of a fire at a Baghdad hospital. And we mark 35 years since the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo. Pope Francis expressed his affection for the people of Armenia over the weekend as the nation marked the 106th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. The Pope sent a Catholic hospital a gift of medical equipment, including a new ambulance, as Devin Watkins reports.
Pope Francis's representative in Armenia, Archbishop Jose Betancourt, delivered a concrete sign of the Holy Father's care and concern on Sunday. The Apostolic Nuncio blessed the gift from the Pope for the Catholic Redemptoris Mater Hospital in the northern Armenian town of Ashotsk. According to a statement from the Holy See Press Office, the gift consisted in a new ambulance equipped with the latest mobile medical equipment and emergency respirators to assist patients with COVID-19. Archbishop Betancourt, joined by Father Mario Cuccarolo, the director of the hospital, held a ceremony at the Ordinariate for Catholics of Armenian Rite in Eastern Europe. The country's Catholic Health Directorate also purchased additional medical equipment to test and treat COVID-19 patients for the hospital. Armenia appears to be emerging from a third wave of coronavirus infections. The country's population of over 3 million registered just 410 new cases over the past 24 hours. Several Vatican organizations joined forces to facilitate the arrival of Pope Francis's gift. The Good Samaritan Foundation, a humanitarian agency which is part of the Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development, as well as the Apostolic Nunciature in Armenia, took part in the gesture of mercy. The Pope's gift came a day after the Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day, which recalls the brutal murder of countless Armenian Christians at the hands of the Ottoman Empire during World War I. The Redemptoris Mater Hospital in Ashotsk is run by the Fathers of St. Camillus de Lelis and provides heavily subsidized health care for those in need, offering it free of charge for those who cannot pay. The Camillians have been caring for people in the Southern Caucasus region for over 25 years. I'm Devin Watkins.
Pope Francis has sent a message of encouragement to a convent of Poor Clares in Paganica who have been a sign of hope amid tragedy. The nuns' convent was destroyed during an earthquake that shook the town of L'Aquila in Italy in 2009. Father Benedict Mayaki tells us more.
Pope Francis on Monday met with the religious sisters of the Poor Clares convent of St. Clare of Paganica outside the Italian city of L'Aquila. Besides the audience in the Vatican, the Holy Father also sent a message to the nuns. He thanked them for the support they gave him through their prayers and also expressed gratitude for the gift of the Easter candle that they decorated for the chapel of Casa Santa Marta. He also highlighted that the nuns are spiritually present at the celebrations taking place at the chapel through their gift of the symbol of Christ, the light of the world. Pope Francis went on to recall an April 2009 earthquake that rocked the Poor Clares community in Paganica, injuring several nuns and causing destruction to the monastery. He remembered that among the quake's victims was Abbe's mother Gemma Antonucci, who died under the rubble. In spite of the tragedy, the Pope noted that God has made the nuns' monastic community emerge from it like a grain of wheat that must die in order to bear fruit. He said that on that night of the incident, the nuns lost everything except God and fraternity, and from these points they set out again with courage, establishing themselves first in a temporary structure before reconstructing the monastery 10 years after. Now, the Pope noted, the community is flourishing, composed of 12 nuns, all young. Through this, the Pope added, the nuns have given a message to all to start afresh from God and from fraternal solidarity. The Holy Father went on to encourage the Poor Clares never to tire of being a prayerful and consoling presence in support of the people who have been sorely tried by the terrible experience and are still in need of comfort and encouragement. The Pope prayed that the example of Blessed Antonia may help the nuns to be poor and joyful women for the love of Christ. He also urged them to respond with generosity to the desire that God has placed in their hearts as consecrated women in adherence with the gospel in fidelity to the charism received from St. Clare and from St. Francis. Pope Francis, concluding his message, imparted an apostolic blessing and invoked the light and strength of the Holy Spirit upon the nuns. He also enjoined them to pray for him and for the whole Church. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
Pope Francis has called an ordinary public consistory for a vote on several causes for canonization. The consistory will take place on Monday the 3rd of May at 10 a.m. Rome time in the consistory hall in the Apostolic Palace, where he will preside at the celebration of Terce mid-morning prayer, with the consistory following immediately. Cardinals who are resident in Rome or present in the city are invited to take part in accordance with anti-COVID-19 precautionary measures. During the consistory, the cardinals will consider the causes for canonization of 7 blesseds, including Charles de Foucauld, the French missionary who was killed in Algeria in 1916, and Blessed Lazarus, called Devasahayam, an 18th century Hindu married man who converted to Catholicism. He is the first layman to be elevated to the rank of blessed in India. A deadly fire that overwhelmed a hospital in the Iraqi capital Baghdad Saturday night has killed 82 people and injured 110 others. Among the victims are relatives and family members of patients. The blaze, triggered by an exploding oxygen cylinder, swept through the intensive care unit of the hospital, which tends exclusively to COVID-19 patients with severe symptoms. Cardinal Louis Raphael Sacco of Baghdad has expressed his condolences at the loss of life and injury in the tragedy. Robin Gomes has the story.
It was with great pain and sadness that we received the news early morning of a fire in Ibn al-Khatib Hospital in Baghdad, said Cardinal Sacco, the Patriarch of the Chaldean Catholic Church. In a condolence message on the Patriarchate's website, he described the tragedy as a humanitarian and national disaster and urged everyone to stand and show solidarity together to take the necessary measures to avoid such shameful disasters. As a church, he said, we affirm our full support for the efforts of the government, security forces and health personnel and all Iraqis of goodwill in building peace, stability, unity and providing services, especially in these turbulent conditions with a region full of conflicts. The Patriarch concluded invoking God's mercy on the dead, the injured, and on Iraq to recover from its recurring crisis. Cardinal Sacco on Sunday visited the burnt hospital where he offered prayers for the victims. Speaking to Vatican News on Monday, he lamented the state of affairs in the country, which he said is due to corruption among authorities. He said Iraq is a rich country, but the funds go into the pockets of corrupt officials, and there has been no improvement in public services and their maintenance in the past 20 years. As a result, people suffer because of inadequate services, such as in hospitals and schools, which are in a miserable situation. He said he spoke with the Prime Minister and the President, who are ready to help the people, especially the families of the victims. The Chaldean Church has donated $10,000 as a sign of solidarity and closeness with the victims. Cardinal Sacco said they are praying for the dead, the injured, and for peace and stability in the country. I am Robin Gomes.
The bishops of England and Wales have issued a reflection following their spring plenary assembly, inviting the faithful back to the church and to her sacraments. Lydia O'Kane reports.
Place Sunday Mass at the heart of your post-pandemic lives. That's the message from the bishops of England and Wales following their spring plenary assembly, which took place last week. In a reflection on post-pandemic recovery issued following the meeting, the bishops encouraged the faithful back to the church and to her sacraments. In the letter entitled The Day of the Lord, the bishops paid tribute to families, parish communities and those who have worked tirelessly in hospitals, care homes, schools and prisons over this last difficult year. The bishops also call attention to the leadership of priests and express their gratitude for the immense efforts of those who have provided food for those most in need. The generosity shown in the distribution of so very many meals, they underline, has given eloquent expression to the mercy, love and compassion which are at the very heart of God. Many have been touched by the joy of meeting Christ in the poor, and many of the poor by the joy of meeting Christ in selfless parishioners. While the bishops praise the various methods of outreach during the pandemic, they pay particular attention to the post-pandemic world, highlighting the challenges they face in bringing communities and the practice of the faith to a still greater expression and strength. The bishops identify a number of groups they are seeking to reach. They include those who have lost the habit of coming to church, and the bishops mention what they call the COVID curious, who may have encountered the Catholic Church for the first time during the pandemic. Another group they are keen to reach are those who may not want to re-establish a pattern of Catholic worship, who may have seen a gap widen between the spiritual dimension of their lives and any communal expression of that spiritual quest. The bishops point out the veritable treasures of the Church as being the tools at their disposal to rise to these challenges, and at the very heart of those treasures is the Eucharist. The reflection highlights the importance of Sunday Mass and the need for it to be placed at the centre of our post-pandemic lives. The bishops emphasise that Sunday needs to be nurtured as a weekly gift from God to his people and something we cannot do without. They conclude by inviting people to view Sunday as the soul of the week, as giving light and meaning to all the responsibilities we live out each day, to see the Sunday Eucharist as food for the unique mission with which we have been endowed. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
And finally, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was due to visit the Chernobyl exclusion zone to commemorate the 35th anniversary of the world's worst nuclear disaster on Monday. His address to Ukrainians comes at a time in which the impact of the tragedy is still being felt among suffering survivors. But as Stefan Boss reports, there is some hope amid the misery.
Hello, is this the militarized fire station? This worker asks. What is burning there on your side? There's an explosion in the main building between the 3rd and 4th unit, he answers. Alarm the personnel. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant explosion caused the world's worst nuclear disaster. But it took authorities of what was then the Soviet Union 35 long hours before they ordered locals to evacuate. Among them was then Chernobyl worker Anna Shinkarenko, a married mother of 3. We started to leave Pripyat town and saw the police. The officers were waving at us to go faster. There was a long line of buses in front of us with residents of Pripyat, she recalls. I felt sick in the car, but what could I do? There were 3 little kids in the back seat. She adds that they were uprooted and never returned. She and her family still suffer from radiation sickness. Yet, amid the misery, there is some hope around what was the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Endangered wild horses are among the animals flourishing in the 30-kilometer Chernobyl exclusion zone. 30 of the breed Przewalski's horse were released here in 1998 as part of preservation efforts. Now some 150 roam the area, 110 kilometers north of Kiev. Denis Vyshensky is head of the research department for Chernobyl radiation and environmental biosphere research. The Chernobyl tragedy is indeed the largest accident at a civilian nuclear facility, he says. At the same time, due to its scale, it is a window of opportunity, both for unique radio-ecological research like nowhere else in the world and the conservation of biological diversity. It is a paradox. It is a small sign that life resumes after the disaster in which so many people perished. The deaths of some 30 people were directly linked to the explosion at the 4th reactor of Chernobyl. Still, thousands more are believed to have died in the years following the disaster of radiation poisoning across Ukraine and neighboring Belarus and Russia. For Vatican Radio, I am Stefan Bos, reporting.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, we invite you to visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va. And you can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. My thanks go to Mario Scatton in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Francesca Merlo.